Thanks a lot for coming here. I think there are some demonstrations that we have planned. Some of them are live. One of that is going to be beamed live out of Sweden in some time. And I think it will be fantastic to see with all of you gentlemen out here. I just wanted to say that there are two sessions to our whole evening here. The first one is a thought leadership session. We've got a complete bevy of guests that I will call on the dais very soon. And just before that, I would want MD of Ericsson, Paolo, Colella, to come here and please welcome us.
Good afternoon. Honorable Shri Sharma, Chairman of TRAI, His Excellency Harald Sandberg, Ambassador of Sweden, Mr. Sunil Mittal, Chairman of Bharti Enterprises, Mr. Rajan Matthews, DG of COIA and our partner in this event. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to this event. Today is exactly 3 months since I joined this wonderful country, and I have to say I still have a lot to learn, but in 3 months I've learned, I've come into a fascinating phase for this market. The innovation pace is boosting new ideas. Mobile broadband is developing and has created the conditions for unbelievable innovation. India is emerging as the third startup market in the world, with new ideas, new applications, new startups empowering new industries to leverage mobile digital connectivity to develop change. I think that this, together with the commitment of the government to build a digital India, I am sure will create incredible conditions for this country, but also create new ideas that will be exported to other parts of the world. At the bottom of all this, there is the network. The network is the fundamental enabler for all this. And we see in some other countries, China, US, most recently Brazil, Japan, Korea, have been already taking a leapfrog and are looking at embracing 5G at the pre-standard level. The reason is that as broadband becomes the prevailing element of traffic in the network and new business models emerge, the demand on the network is becoming very stringent. The new use cases will require a completely new logic to be developed. This requires long-term planning. It requires that all of us, all industry players, government regulators work together to set the conditions and the right roadmap to make sure that 5G comes to India. Of course, as an important part of the industry and a strong commitment we have from our company, we would love to see India being part of the first adoption of this technology. Would make a lot of sense as mobility is so relevant for this country. But in order to do that, we have to work together, as I said. I would suggest that we look at some samples of how this technology works. We have a connection with our labs.
Okay, so very welcome. My name is Anders Backerom and welcome to Ericsson Studio. So this is the place where we bring all the customers and people visiting Ericsson Studio. And now you're here as well. And the people that we bring here, it could be everything from customers visiting Ericsson, it can be C-level, but it can also be students, it can be internal Ericsson employees or regulators. So we have everything here, and what we want to show is how the world is changing and how we're changing with the world. So one of the things that we want to, of course, talk about is the future, and how the future can bring us new devices coming into our networks and how we can use them. And one of the networks that we're talking most about right now is 5G, because this is the development going on that is under development right now. And I'm right now standing next to a 5G phone. And if you look here, this is it. It's very small. Actually, it's much smaller than the one that we have for 4G. And the reason why we have a 5G phone here is, of course, we want to test things with 5G and how we can use it, and what other device that will start using the 5G. Because when we talk about networks, until 4G, they have been developed for people. Now with 5G, this is also developed for machines. So in the development phase of 5G, now we have people sitting there and say, okay, I would like to connect my car with a lot of bandwidth, but at the same time extremely low latency so I can make an automatic driving. Next to that one, we can have a person sitting that they want to have a device that they just throw out of an airplane that will just tell that it's alive once per month, but it will remain 10 years on battery lives. So how do we make a network for these? Well, the first thing we have to see is that we probably need to have a lot of bandwidth, and we also need to have very low latency. When it comes to bandwidth, if we look at the phone that we have here, this is, as I said, this is a phone. Behind me, we have some antennas. We have 2 of them. And this phone is right now using a very high spectrum, and therefore we can get up there. We have a lot of free bandwidth. So therefore, with this one, we can get around 5,000 megabits per second in this cell that this phone and other 5G phones can share. So that's what we're seeing here. If you look on the GUI on my right side, we can also see that we're running a video on this one, and that's just so we can see that we have some content running as well. And we can also see that this has 2 different types of radio. We have 5G and we have 4G. Right now it's not using the 4G, but what we're going to do a little bit later is to force it to make a handover to 4G. So as I said, 5G is something that we have developed for not only people, it can also be other industries, and that's also why we're talking so much to other industries. And for example, car industry was something, so a Volvo that I have here could be a very useful example of something that would like to connect. This Volvo is indeed connected. It has around 500 APIs that we can fetch, that we can analyze, and that we can do things with. I will come back to that a little bit later. So, 5G. This phone, I could take it with me, go 200 meters in that direction, and then I will force it to make a handover, just to show that it will work with 4G, because the cells will be very small when we have 5G. But instead of doing that, I will run a script, and that we can see now that it will start going down, and then we will force it to go to 4G. So you see the speed is going down, you can see the video is running all the time, and when we're approaching somewhere around 100 megabits on 5G, it will then jump over to 4G. So that is something that will happen somewhere. Let's see the green dot when it moves. And there we had a handover. And as you can see in the video, nothing happened. So 5G and 4G will work together in the future. And that's very important. And some of the things that we have seen from our research is also that perhaps we can, if we take the heaviest user out of 4G and put it into 5G, we can also penetrate building further with 4G. And that's also very essential to reach devices that are in buildings like that. So with that, thank you for visiting us in Kista studio, and we'll be meeting each other later as well. So back to you.
So we are assembled all here today to hear from the industry thought leaders, from the government, the regulators, key industry players, work together, build a discussion how we can all together build a smart digital India. Enjoy the event and see you later.
Thank you, Paolo. That was, if for those who saw the numbers out there, 100 megabits per second was 4G, and there was a very large number sitting next to it which was 5G. And thanks to technology, we actually beamed this whole thing absolutely live on our 8 meg pipe that we put on back of the screen, right from Sweden. Yes, so, and that's the welcome to the future that we are all here to do. Thanks a lot. I think we are all here assembled, and I'm going to call on, the first inaugural panel, as we say, to come on stage, as I say. Paolo, you will please have to join us on stage as our Paolo's 91st day in office, ladies and gentlemen, and I think he's already started speaking Hindi. So we've got Paolo, who was head of global CSI, as we call it, our ICT department, and heading a very, very large business, has spent 15 years in Ericsson, and many, many more to you, Paolo. Wish you luck. Our co-host and partner, Mr. Rajan Matthews. And for those who you know Mr. Matthews, he's been a doyen of our industry. He's been here, and just a trivia, Rajan, if you permit me. He's also had some experience with Columbia TriStar Pictures. So in case you need, assistance in films, Rajan is here. Allow me to call a guest that we've invited from Sweden, Mr. Ulf Pehrsson. Ulf Pehrsson is the head of global policy for Ericsson and has been a complete stalwart in trying to show the world where policy should head. He's here to give us some best effects and special case studies that we can see today. Ulf, thanks a lot for coming all the way from Sweden. He's just arrived a couple of hours early, and he's going to rock it. Thank you. We have a very special guest again fresh in his job, but I'm too small to say that, Shri Sewak Sharma, TRAI chairperson, who has taken this role. Thanks a lot for coming, sir. And no amount of resume kind of, wordsmithing is enough, but he has held some very, very important state and center roles. The one that I really like, sir, allow me to indulge a bit, is the Aadhaar one, where the rollout of whole Aadhaar, it's the single largest, kind of 10 thumbprint, 2 iris scan of more than 850 million people in a single database has been rolled out by this gentleman in his past stint. Thanks a lot, sir, for coming here. Can I invite a special guest, Mr. Harald Sandberg, His Excellency, Ambassador of Sweden to India, and again, an extremely illustrious career. Thanks a lot, sir, for joining us. He has handled some real, quote-unquote diplomatic situations in very tough countries that he has been ambassador. He's also been an avid historian, and he loves to chat up on history. It'll be great to have a conversation in the evening with Mr. Sandberg. So thank you. And our super special guest for the evening, meaning none less than Shri Sunil Bharati Mittal. Can I, sir, invite you on stage? Thank you so much. Mr. Mittal is a Padma Bhushan awardee of the Government of India, and I just don't have a candle to hold to him on telecom side, so I'm just going to say thanks a lot, sir, for coming here. We will kick off the proceeds today. Rajan, over to you.
Thank you, Manoj, for those introductions and for welcoming all of our esteemed panelists and guests. Our first person who's going to be giving a presentation is Ulf. So, Ulf, if I might have you come over and address the audience and give us your presentation. Thank you.
Thanks for inviting me again to this year's Broadband For All, organized by Ericsson in close cooperation with COAI. So, Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, I thought I'd talk a bit about where we are in the global industry and the fast uptake of technology. Then I'll talk a bit about what this means for policymakers, for governments and regulators, the challenges in taking us into the network society. And then, of course, I'll talk about spectrum, the most important asset that is needed to ensure the way forward and in order for us to deliver these very important services. So just one slide to show that we see a continued rapid uptake of technology. This is showing the number of mobile subscriptions going forward from today's level of some 7.4 billion to more than 9 billion in the next 5 years. But the most significant change is actually that 85% by 2021 of all mobile subscriptions will actually be on 3G and 4G, enabling mobile broadband. And this is, of course, driven by the fast uptake of smartphones around the world, connecting billions to the internet for the first time via the mobile device. And what's happening then with more users out there, with more advanced devices, and we know also and can foresee that each user will actually increase his or her data consumption via the mobile device, be it on a smartphone, a tablet, or a connected PC, by a factor of 4 or 6. And all this brought together makes for this explosion of traffic in mobile networks. And already today, actually video represents more than half of traffic in mobile networks. but actually by 2021, that number will be over 70%. But of course, it's not only a very fast pace when it comes to connecting people. We know that over history, it took us 100 years to connect 1 billion places, about 25 years to connect 5 billion people. And we expect in a very short time to connect 50 billion things, 50 billion connected devices. We actually expect that by 2021 we'll reach 28 billion or so. And this is actually enabling us to take us into what Ericsson has termed the network society, where basically everything that benefits from being connected to the network will be connected. And this produces and establishes a platform for basically all businesses, for all sectors of society that can use the ICT as a platform and a foundation for innovation. We know this will have a very broad application. We will hear examples here today, but it also has the power to really transform societies. So technology is obviously driving this change. Then you can ask yourself, what is the role then of governments, policymakers? What do they need to do? And I should emphasize that the role of policymakers is actually increasing, because obviously technology cannot do it all alone. There is no automatic results of establishing the benefits of this network society. So increasingly, policymakers will have to produce the adequate response in order for us to decide the size and the sustainability of the benefits following from this development. So what does this mean? We see technology in the blue curve there. I mean, technology has a pace of change that is exponential. Things are happening. We know about Moore's law, etc. This is happening exponentially. We see that people and markets are pretty deft at adapting to this technology change. But we also know, as is this sort of straight line there illustrates, that the pace of change when it comes to governance and institutions is very much linear. So the gap has actually been increasing between where technology is and the policy response. So there is a gap that needs to be filled in order for us to reap the full benefits of the network society. And this actually shows that there are a number of challenges that the policymakers need to respond to, because it's important that there is a vision by governments. Where do we want to take us? But the policymakers, the governments, also need to ensure that there are the skills, the incentives are there, the resources are there, and finally, there needs to be an action plan to decide how to take the country further. And we see from our experience studying national broadband plans around the world that if you just fail on one, if you miss out on one of these elements, you are not guaranteed success. So it has to be a response that is sort of holistic from governments in order to address this. And actually, if we look at some countries, you can't read it, but there are actually 15 countries, both emerging markets and more advanced markets, that we looked into, and how they've handled the national broadband plans. And you can see the green marks there showing where you have been successful. And this shows that there's no guarantee that you will succeed if you're in an advanced market, or that you would fail if you're in an emerging market. Actually, the best examples of national broadband policies we find both in countries like my home country in Sweden, or South Korea, or Singapore, but we actually find it in South Africa as well. So there is a possibility, definitely, for also emerging markets to get their act together and produce broadband plans and national digitalization plans that actually work. OECD did a study, mostly advanced OECD countries, but also countries like Egypt. And they see now that out of the countries they looked at the recent study, actually 27 out of 34 countries had a digitalization strategy. And what is so important with that? I think the first point is extremely important. It's not only about broadband deployments. Broadband is absolutely fundamental. But what the governments need to do is to address cross-sectorial issues. It's not only about Department of ICT and Telecoms. All government departments need to be involved. Also, these strategies that we find, they are designed to increase competitiveness, to drive growth, and increase social well-being. So policies and programs need to be also complemented by complete and concrete action programs in these countries. So there are many good examples around the world. We've seen that. And the challenge is, of course, that if you're a policymaker, some years back, you could focus probably on what we call the supply side issues. Have your national broadband plan, make sure they have the good network regulation, ensure that you have the spectrum available. But increasingly, you also need to address what we would call the demand side. How do you regulate data usage, data protection? Data is the new oil, as someone has said. Also media content regulation, the whole Internet of Things that we already talked about, and also embracing the horizontal issues like internet governance, trade issues, intellectual property rights, and not least cybersecurity and critical network security. So the task of regulators has become more important, but I would say also so more challenging. Okay, so coming into then to spectrum. And this is maybe a typical country. It's not one particular country, but it shows the spectrum assets of an operator. Lower frequency band, 700, that of course will be opened up and made available next year in India. Mid-range spectrum up to the highest spectrum. What we see now is two trends. One is that LTE, 4G LTE, is gradually initiated and launched in most of these spectrum bands. And the other trend is, of course, that we see much more of carrier aggregation, both in 3G and HSPA, but increasingly also in 4G LTE, and of course delivering then ever higher capacity of these networks. This is the development we're seeing now. This is actually showcasing the median download speeds in LTE networks in 5 countries. So from the top is Australia, then it's Sweden, then it's the United States, and then it's Japan and India. And to be fair, of course, LTE only very recently was introduced in India. This actually tracks back to 2012 up until just a few months ago. And you see that top scorer here is actually Australia. And this is as measured by users themselves that use this speed test. Users are actually initiating this test themselves. But what we see is, of course, that you reach very high speeds in LTE networks in Australia today. And why is that? Well, if you look at the leading operator in Australia, you can see that they have quite a big chunk of spectrum. They have spectrum assets of more than 200 megahertz. And if you remember, Sweden was actually number 2 in that list. If you look at Telia, the leading Swedish operator, they are close to 200. They are at 170 megahertz. And after you see here, Japan, 120 megahertz. Coming back to that slide, you see that Japan did pretty well up until a bit more than a year ago. But then, of course, with increased usage, of course, when users are getting hooked to these new services, they have more subscribers in the networks. If they don't secure more spectrum, you actually see that the median speeds on the red curve there is actually stabilizing and not increasing anymore. So there's a clear link between spectrum availability and the speed of 4G networks that you're able to deliver. So spectrum availability is then critical. This was actually a study that made some time back by GSMA, identifying what they saw as the spectrum shortage by 2020 in a number of Asian countries, estimating between 300 and 600 megahertz per country. I think here enough to say that we see, of course, that India is taking a big step in the right direction by opening up 700 and also other frequency bands next year, working hard to actually fill that gap. But of course, for us in the industry, we looked also at the recently concluded World Radio Conference, the so-called WRC, taking place for 4 weeks in Geneva, where governments around the world come together in order to identify new spectrum, not only for mobile, but also for other industries. And I must say that some weeks back, we had major worries that this conference, which is only taking place every third or fourth year, would not produce the wished for results, namely to secure more spectrum. But in the end, it actually came out in a pretty good way. Difficult for you to see, but actually what happened was that there is now an agreement and identification of globally harmonized spectrum, both in the 1.4 gigahertz band and in the higher band around 3.5 gigahertz. So looking at our sort of expectations only some weeks back, this came out pretty well. And what is also important, especially referring to India here, is that India and some other countries actually took further steps. I mean, in the Indian case, also opening up for mobile services to study that in the below 700 megahertz band in 470 to 694. So steps are taken in the right direction. And just when you are on regulation, of course, what we see is that this convergence of broadcasting and mobile, and also we see, of course, satellite offering similar services to end users as mobile is doing. We see, of course, an increasing need for converged regulation, and in order to create what we would call a level playing field, independent of who is providing similar services. You saw the Ericsson 5G terminal. It's not that handy yet, but I'm sure it will shrink in size when we get closer to the launch date of commercial services 5 years from now. And you also heard Anders Backerholm from the Ericsson studio talking about the vastly increased demands and objectives that we have with delivering and developing 5G when it comes to data volumes, the number of connected devices, the latency, which has to come down dramatically, the response times, the end-user data rates exploding, and of course also from a sustainability point of view, the battery life. And so then coming back to the spectrum, what is the spectrum needed for 5G? We see that, and Anders Backerholm very clearly emphasized that 5G will be in combination with 4G. 4G will be a necessary basis, and then 5G networks will be added on top of that, working together seamlessly, as you saw in the example. And we're then looking at spectrum above 6 gigahertz, and even up to very high frequency bands, where you can secure big bandwidths. And this is quite detailed, but actually what we have been saying is that already at this WRC, it would have been excellent if one had been able to identify the need for studies in the lower part of these high-frequency bands between 6 and 10 gigahertz, etc. What actually happened was that there was consensus. Once again, I think it's strong credit to the international community that say that before next World Radio Conference, you need to identify spectrum and start studies in these higher frequency bands. So that's happening, but still I think we need to look at the lower half, the lower part of those higher frequency bands, because if we are to launch 5G, and we, in our latest Ericsson Mobility report, actually saw that there will be around 150 million 5G subscriptions already by 2021. And we need spectrum in order to meet the demands of indoor usage, to penetrate buildings and walls and windows, etc. Use cases will be multiple. I think we will hear more about that. But of course, it will not only be about connecting persons requiring high bandwidth and high performance services, but also about Internet of Things, remote controlled machines, etc., etc., e-health, m-health solutions, etc., but who knows? And just to sum up, spectrum remains of absolutely fundamental importance to the development of these services, and of course the preferred option, as we saw in the results from WRC, is harmonized spectrum, enabling industry to develop the standardized technologies that then can be launched by operators in the licensed frequency bands. This has been proven to be an extremely successful model. We'll continue to build on that. And for the regulators, for the governments, for the policymakers, in order to master this digital transformation taking us into the network society, We need, of course, to secure high-quality broadband and IT infrastructure, but it's also about providing the leadership and the institutional capabilities, as well as delivering the enabling policies and regulation for this to happen and for us in our societies to reap the full benefits of this technology revolution, 4G and 5G taking us forward. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ulf. Certainly a staggering look at what one can expect. You're already talking about 5G, and here we are still discussing 3G and 4G rollouts. And so thank you for a glimpse of that horizon that we are all aspiring to. But one of the things that unmistakably comes out of this is the phenomenal amount of bandwidth, especially spectrum. You look at Australia, what is it, 227 megahertz of spectrum, and we limp along at about, what, 12 to 15 megahertz per operator, and to deliver to 1 billion people the type of speeds that are really there is really something that we have to hitch our horses onto these stars to get there. So I think the challenge is well laid out. I think the vision has been set for us. And I think asking the policy, the regulatory, and the supporting infrastructure to get in place because of this great challenge is certainly a call that we must heed. So thank you for that. I think one of the important points that you made was that the fundamental difference between 4G, 3G, and 5G is the fact that you're now going from sort of person-to-person connectivity to, connecting people and things to things. I just spoke with one of our operators, and I said, you know what? I've been to Barcelona last year, and I told them that 5G is the rage. I said, they just want to sell us more boxes. I said, no. So as I said, our operators are still dealing with the challenges of the thing. But I think one of the things that we really have to talk about as we talk about these new technologies is, in the Indian context, the affordability factor that comes up in terms of making sure that the equipment that is there not only takes care of these peculiarities, if you will, of our power requirements and the fact that invariably we have to do more with less. So some of that getting incorporated into the design characteristics that happen, I think will be something that will be well looked into, I suppose, as we start going there. Thank you very much, Ulf, certainly enlightening. And now I have the great pleasure of inviting Honorable Ambassador, His Excellency, Mr. Sandberg. Sir, you've been a key proponent of trade. I was just watching the BBC show, and they were putting on this great show on the greatest company the earth has ever seen. Of course, they were talking about the British East India Company. And the British East India Company by 1857 was worth more than the total value of the British Empire put together. We've come a long way since then, but I think you've been one of those principal architects of pushing trade as one of the significant relationship factors between Sweden and India. And so we're very grateful. You've led a couple of missions to Sweden. You brought a couple of missions here, and you've really pushed that aspect of trade and inventions and innovation. And so, sir, we really look forward to that. Sweden, you just once made the comment. He says, what, we have 8 to 10 million people. We put on every month about 4 to 5 million. So in about 3 months, we put on the total population of Sweden in terms of subscribers. So you've talked to us about innovation. You've talked to us about the need of trade. You brought companies like Ericsson and supported them. So please come and tell us what that means in terms of the relationships between Sweden and India, a long-lasting one, goes all the way back almost 100 years by the time Ericsson was here. You hire more Indians in India, Ericsson does, than you do in Sweden. And so please come and share your thoughts about what your vision about Sweden and India together achieving. Thank you, sir.
Shri R.S. Sharma, Honorable Chairman of TRAI, Honorable Shri Sunil Bharti Mittal, Chairman Bharti Enterprises, Ulf Pehrsson, Global Head Government and Industry Relations of Ericsson, Rajan Matthews, Director General COAI, Paolo, MD Ericsson India, and ladies and gentlemen, it's indeed an honor for me to be here and address this knowledgeable audience for this year's conference on Broadband for All. Allow me first a few words on broader developments that I think link to openness, trade, mobility, and a world, the world that we wish to live in. The world is going through a challenging and difficult period. As you of course understand, I'm referring to the threats to the open society and human values that terrorism has again brought, this time in Paris, in Bamako, Mali, and yet another bomb blast in Tunis, in Tunisia. We grieve with the victims, and we're determined, like India after Mumbai 26/11, to defend our ways of life, the open and democratic character of our societies, and the human values ingrained in them. Our freedom to live and move. Mobility of thought and information in the absolutely broadest sense of that word. Europe is currently seeing the largest refugee crisis since World War II. Very large numbers of people are fleeing their homelands for life and safety for their families. Sweden alone will this year receive around 190,000 refugees. With the figures just given as to the size of the country, it's easy to calculate this is about 2% of the population. Of course, this puts enormous strain on society. But when talking of a challenging period in history, I'm also referring to our fragile planet in a physical sense. We cannot condemn our children and their children to a future that is beyond the capacity to repair. We now have the technological innovation and the scientific imagination to begin the work of repairing it right now. And I believe that the deliberations here are very relevant in that context. The Secretary General of the UN, Ban Ki-moon, has said that our generation is the first one that can end poverty and the last generation that can fight climate change. In open societies, government, science, and the private sector can work together and do something about it. Sweden, we for our part, have set the goal to become one of the world's first nation to completely end our dependence on fossil fuels and having no net emissions of greenhouse gases by the year 2050. We've also set the goal to have a fossil-free transport sector already by the year 2030, that is 15 years from now. At the 2015 UN Climate Change Conference that has just started in Paris, we hope for strong commitments by all nations to address climate change. I can say in that context, and I can say today, that I'm proud of Swedish industry. They're at the forefront of integrating a sustainable approach to business with extensive environmental protection, measures to improve the work environment, and gender equality. Ericsson is right there. And the development of the networked society is a core element, I believe, in building a sustainable future. "2015 is an auspicious year, not only for geopolitical reasons, but steps have been taken in the right direction by the global community. We have now a global agenda for sustainable development in the so-called Agenda 2030, adhered to by all countries in the UN General Assembly in New York as recently as September this year. It's grounded in the firm belief that poverty can and should be eradicated, that climate change can and must be stopped, that equal societies are better societies, and the foundation for a better future for all of us. Goal number 8 in the Agenda 2030 is, and I quote, "promote sustained, inclusive, and sustainable economic growth, full and productive employment, and decent work for all." This relates directly to deliberations like this one. Sweden and India have a long and very rich history of bilateral relations, and our companies in both countries are an integral part in developing this relationship. This, I would say, is especially the case in the telecommunications and IT sectors. Ericsson has been present in India for over 100 years and has today more employees here than in any other countries, including its home base in Sweden. Over 20,000. Indian companies like Wipro, Tata Consultancy, have also made significant investments in Sweden. Since Sweden opened up its labor market for nationals outside of the EU, qualified Indians have been the biggest group to come to Sweden. In fact, the success of some of our software firms in Stockholm depends directly on the possibility of recruiting talent from India. Like India, Sweden also has large rural areas. And one key challenge has been to connect all parts of the country, including thousands of islands. We're happy to share best practices. Our collaboration has strengthened further during the recent visit by our ICT and Urban Development Minister, Mr. Mehmet Kaplan, who was visiting India recently. We have come rather far in the area of broadband, and we're eager to share our experiences with India when it comes to broadband-related policy questions, implementation, or through the expertise of our companies. Increased use of technology has played a critical role in renewing urban areas in Sweden. One of the more exciting example is the new smart city that is coming up in the Stockholm Royal Seaport, one of Europe's largest urban development projects, transforming what was an industrial area into offices and housing. By 2030, the goal is that Royal Seaport is free of fossil fuels, climate positive, and fully adapted to climate change. And Ericsson is one of the main partners in building this smart city. As India embarks on similar projects of constructing smart cities, I would welcome you to visit Sweden. I think there is a lot we can learn from each other. We've heard from Paolo and Ulf some very interesting insights, and including a fascinating direct contact with your studio in Stockholm. India is at the verge of another IT revolution as the government and private sectors are connecting an ever-increasing number of people to high-speed internet. Connecting the population is a critical enabler to promote sustainable and inclusive economic growth. So I'm confident that broadband-enabled digital India will help India to become a truly competitive, knowledge-based economy and leverage citizens to become healthier, better educated, and more engaged in their community and society. It also has the ability to transform and has the power to create new business models that will change the way we work and live. I've been told that for every 1,000 additional broadband users, roughly 80 new jobs are created, and for every 10 percentage points increase in broadband penetration, the isolated economic effect on GDP growth is about 1% of GDP. ICT enhances productivity in virtually all sectors of the economy. What we see now in India is impressive, with the rapid expansion of broadband infrastructure in the coming years. And thanks to the Honourable Minister, Ravi Shankar Prasad, you regulator, Mr. Sharma, industry leaders, and the father of India's mobile growth story, Mr. Sunil Mittal, and the operator customers in India. I'm confident that India is solving the broadband penetration challenge rapidly and with mobile broadband. Sweden and Swedish companies are indeed happy to share our best practice experiences and solutions. I look forward to listen to the various stakeholders tonight, and I wish you very much a fruitful deliberations. So thank you very much, and thank you for letting me be part and listen to your proceedings. Thank you.
Your Excellency, thank you very much for that warm invitation to have our nations work together towards things that have already become reality in your part of the world. One can well imagine the pace of innovation that Sweden showed the world. Being a small country, yet in the telecom side, having some of the best companies in terms of the technology, the innovations, and being able to share that with countries. But the other thing that strikes many folks who look at the country of Sweden is the fact that not only do you have such great innovation, growth, and stupendous innovative capability, but also the social dimension. I guess they say that Sweden is one of the happier places to live in. It's consistently ranked up there in terms of best places to live in. And I think one looks back at history at the time when the Nazi Holocaust was sweeping through, and one of the places that offered unconditional open borders was Sweden. And now recently, as you just talked about, the massive immigration that takes place, and again, Sweden standing out as a place that welcomes folks into your country. So a great lesson for the rest of the world as well. So thank you very much, sir, for that vision, that welcome, that participatory invitation to join you as well. Now I have the great pleasure to invite Mr. Sharma, who is our TRAI chairman, sir. Welcome. You are no stranger. You've been at the DIT, you've been at Aadhaar, all dear and near to our hearts, sir. So please decipher the tea leaves for us, sir. Thank you.
Good evening, friends. Your Excellency, the Ambassador of Sweden to India, Mr. Sunil Mittal, Mr. Rajan Matthews, our guests from Sweden, the industry leaders, friends. It's indeed a privilege and pleasure for me to speak to you on a topic which is so dear to me personally. In all my kind of avatars before this, I have been, closely and deeply associated with the broadband in some sense. About 1.5 years back, when the new government came to power, and I happened to be IT secretary at that point of time, and we were told that, why don't you craft out something for Digital India? And this is a term which we had not heard before. We had NEGP. We had a number of programs. So when we started preparing a draft, we were told that, don't worry and bother as to what the cost of various things which you put in is going to be. You just imagine what a Digital India should be. What should be the desirable attributes of a Digital India? And we started, drafting out, and we had a number of drafts. And believe me, starting with the first draft, broadband as a utility to citizens was the first point in every draft we prepared. So it is really such an important, prerequisite for a Digital India that, whatever you do, everything rides on this. So the broadly 3 visions of Digital India, which ultimately we drafted out, the first one is digital infrastructure as a utility to citizens. So that's first part. Second is services and software on demand. And obviously, all these software and services will ride on this digital infrastructure. And the last one was digital empowerment of citizens. So again, this digital infrastructure is there. On that, you will have software and services, and citizen empowerment will take place through utilization of both these utilities, both these facilities. So I think this is extremely important. And, from a perspective of digital infrastructure, again, we talked about one is the broadband. Second one was, mobile phone for everybody, mobile connection for everybody. And the third one was, digital identity for every person. So these are some of the software, soft side of, and then of course, bank account for every person, what you now call JAM, Trinity, Janadhan, Aadhaar, and mobile. Now, obviously, all these will ride on this broadband. So I think this is the most important part. And the second one, which is the, mobile connection for everybody, I must say at this forum that we are indeed proud And we take pride in the fact that India today has 1 billion plus mobile connection, and all of you gentlemen deserve credit for that achievement to happen. And one most important part is not only that you have connected the entire country. I mean, 1.3 billion is the population, and there are 1 billion phones. So more or less every citizen of this country has an access to a mobile phone. And of course, the smartphones, I am told, are growing at the rate of 25 million per quarter. So what we are seeing is a huge growth in mobiles becoming a tool of empowerment, of doing digital transactions. So that's a real credit. And what is most important is that India has one of the most affordable rates in the entire world. That's another real achievement which you gentlemen have achieved. And I think you have shown the world that an average top-up is 10 rupees. Now, you have shown the sustainability of a transaction valued at 10 rupees. That again is a miracle. 10 rupees in terms of US cent will be about 20 cents, or maybe less than that, 16 cents. So it's a huge, credit. And you have shown the world that, we can do. And India has a very typical part, When we started the mobile, it was 16 rupees a minute. And even the incoming calls were, paid, have to be paid by the person who was called. And now we have come down to an average rate of, I believe, 50 paisa, less than 50 paisa a minute. This is a huge change and transformation which is taking place. And that is the only way you can address, couple of days back, I was asked to speak on some conference related to payment banks. And I prepared a presentation which was basically saying digital banking. But then I added another term to it. It was frugal digital banking. Frugality actually is the trademark of, if you go to the base of the pyramid, unless you have frugal, affordable, whatever term you call it, and unfortunately or fortunately, affordability in India is really, you have to reach real frugal rates, then it becomes affordable. And once it becomes affordable, really there is a huge expense, and because the numbers become very large. So therefore, you have created an infrastructure which is able to provide people with very, very frugal rates, and you have penetrated that bottom of the pyramid. Now, I think India looks to you to provide the second, revolution in terms of providing the data services, the 3G, 4G, and the 5G. And of course, when we were discussing about the 5G, as Rajan said that we are still stuck with 2G and 3G. I mean, you don't need to be stuck. I think we will be able to overcome. And once the data services become, because people are now realizing, people are doing e-commerce. India has got, we call it 300 million internet or broadband users, internet users. 100 million of them are on the fixed line. 200 million are on the, mobile wireless kind of lines. But the bandwidth are really abysmally low. And we need to really create systems where all these 200 million also start enjoying the fruits of a very high speed connectivity. We should also realize that globally, there are 4 billion people who are unconnected. And 1 billion of them lie in this country. Because we have 1.3 billion, only 300 million are connected as of now by the broadband or by the internet. So therefore, there's a huge potential. And I think we have to maintain the characteristics of this whole market, that everybody becomes a participant only when you bring down the rates below a certain threshold, so that it becomes affordable to everybody. So therefore, affordable broadband to all is an award, objective of Digital India. If we want to really go there, we have to create this. It is also, and it's not a luxury. Let us understand that all the applications which we are talking about, health, education, all the other e-government applications, payments, systems, everything is dependent on this connectivity. And if we have that, the growth which is going to be brought out in all these sectors is going to be huge. Imagine today we have huge issues with the quality of education. We can, using the tele-education, we can bring a huge change in that. We can have very, very qualified teachers delivering lectures across the distances to the whole country. And actually we can improve upon that. Similarly, there are health issues. Everybody, comes down to AIIMS. People from Bihar, Jharkhand, all poor people, they come down to this place, AIIMS, and it becomes very difficult. If you have this telemedicine system going down to the villages with huge, video, good quality video, I think the whole, it will solve a huge problem of health-related issues. So I think there are large number of applications which are waiting to happen if we make this broadband revolution a reality and a success. And I'm really looking forward to that. Let's also understand a typical, from my perspective, what I feel is that in America, for example, I'm told that 50% of the broadband is provided through the wireline. Either it is cable or it is through the telephone lines. Unfortunately, in India, we have missed that. We have just about 20 million telephone lines, and some of them are even being dismantled. So I think that is not feasible here. However, we still have about 100 million people connected on the, cable TV is reaching 100 million homes. And I think we should find out ways and means to make the, data flow through these cables. And that will, provide a fixed broadband connectivity or fixed line to 500 million people. That's the potential. Of course, it may not happen if it is not affordable, if it is not, many people may not like to have it. But then, so therefore what I'm trying to say is we need to adopt a mix and a multi-pronged approach to address this issue of providing broadband to everybody. And that approach should include a provision of data services, 3G, 4G, which should happen as soon as possible. And of course, TRAI as a regulator, we had been recommending to the government to make more and more spectrum available to the industry. And I'm happy to say that this is happening now. And it will happen now again, with a little bit accelerated speed, I hope. So that is something which we have been telling the government, and we are very clear that this is one way to go forward, because you already have 1 billion plus mobile connections, and these connections can be used to provide broadband at an affordable cost, data at an affordable cost. So that's one approach. The second approach which we propose is that the cable TV network should be utilized to deliver broadband in a fixed way, and that I think will become very good, because it will also, in some sense, it will not use the spectrum part, it will just use the wireline part. And then there are, of course, some inaccessible areas in our country where you can have the satellite, provision of broadband through satellite, because it's not possible to lay the fiber there. Of course, government has come up with a very, very ambitious program of BharatNet, as you are aware, and this program the size of the program is of the order of about 17 or 18 billion dollars US, and that program is going to be launched very soon, and that will connect each panchayat with a gigabit connectivity through an optical fiber cable. Now, this is going to be really transformational if it happens at a speed, and which we think it will happen, because the country is actually looking forward to such infrastructure. And once that happens, then we will see a gigabit connectivity taking place, and I'm sure all these stakeholders, including the telecom service providers, the entertainment providers, the government services providers, everybody will start using that broadband which the fiber will bring about. So BharatNet is another project which is going to supplement this effort of providing broadband to everybody. So we are all, and of course, the other day some experiments were being done in white spaces, for example. So some people were saying that, the white spaces could be used to provide broadband. So this is another one. TRAI, in its recent paper of, finding out the reserve prices for some of the spectrum bands, we have asked a question, and I don't know, that's just for the industry and for everybody to respond. We have said that like rollout obligations, you start at the top, saying that, you cover cities of so much population, you cover districts, you cover blocks. What we are saying, will it be a good idea if, let's say, a spectrum of the 700 megahertz band or some bands which are, I'm told they have the characteristics to go long distance, broadband, wireless, they can provide. Can we have the inverted rollout obligations, which means you start from the villages. So your first year should be, you start providing connectivity through the villages, some of the, divided villages in your service area. So whether that can, ensure that people have availability of broadband in the rural areas. So so essentially one should use a proper mix of various technologies, various programs, projects, and various regulatory measures to ensure that broadband is available to the people of this country at an affordable rate. And of course, we can't wait much longer. There is not much time. And I think all the applications and services are really ready. For example, the banking. Now I'm told a number of telcos have got payment bank licenses. I'm very sure you will make a huge success out of it because you have already experienced in providing, 10 rupees top-up transaction. If you can provide a transaction of the size of 10 rupees, what a person is looking for, essentially is again a frugal banking. He is looking for a transaction size of 100 rupees, 150 rupees. And currently I'm told the transactions of 100 rupees, if you do it through an ATM, that costs you 20 rupees. And if you do it through an counter in the bank, that costs you 45 rupees. So this is certainly unsustainable, unworkable. So you will provide those things, but that will happen only when we are able to have a broadband which is really broadband in the sense in which otherwise it will be an apology for a broadband, 256 kbps and once we are talking of 5 gigs as the speed in Sweden and 5G, and we should at least talk of 10 megabits, if nothing less, if nothing more rather. So I think my belief is that if we really, all of us work together, industry, government, regulators, with the kind of vision which our Honorable Prime Minister has of Digital India, I'm sure we'll be able to take the broadband to the masses in this country also. Thank you very much for inviting me.
Honorable Chairman, I thank you, sir, for articulating some of the points of view. You talked about affordability, you talked about the rollout and the necessity of networks right down to Gram Panchayat level, the role of government. And I think a very interesting comment that you highlighted was that we need to work together. I think this notion that we are at some times adversarial relationships, I think that's good headlines for the media, but I think the actual reality is that we spend more time in one another's offices and talking with one another and discussing real life problems and issues. And I think that singular point you addressed is that all progress that has been achieved. And I just want to very quickly just highlight 4 points just from a historical perspective to highlight this. When you go back 1995 when we first came in, 94 when Mr. Sunil rolled out, we had overbid, and Mr. Vajpayee took a historical decision which people said, you've been paid off and you've been done this. And he said, no, we're going to bite the bullet and we're going to go to revenue share. And that really was one of the sort of inflection points that broke the logjam, sir. And that was a point when government stepped in and addressed a significant issue of industry, sir. And then the next point that I look at when we were all struggling to roll this out, technology stepped in because we couldn't have done this without prepaid. I still remember talking to Ericsson, whether it's your IN port or some other basis on which we had to write off, as you well know, crores of rupees in uncollectibles because we couldn't collect money in times. And so technology stepping in. The third inflection point, sir, as you know, is again when the regulator introduced calling party pays. Of course, we were all kicking and screaming and saying, oh no, this is going to be detrimental. But again, when you look back, sir, this was a point at which the regulator stepped in and really the industry took off again. And then, as they say, the rest is history. But I think this again shows, when once those quote-unquote animal spirits are unleashed, the industry really was allowed to run and take off, and together, I think that's the mantra that we are looking forward, sir, to go ahead. And so thank you very much for sharing that. We appreciate your inputs. Manoj, thank you very much, sir. It's my distinct and honorable privilege to invite Mr. Sunil Bharati Mittal. So you've been one of the highlights of the telecom industry from its very early days when others saw bleakness, you saw opportunity, and you expanded and you invested, and you've made this industry what it is today in terms of what vision you set. And as a result of that commitment, India has benefited, and you've put India on the map in terms of both size and scale and scope. And today, folks who look to work in the industry look at Airtel as one of those aspirational companies where they would like to work. So, sir, would you please come and address the audience and give us your points of view and perspectives on broadband? Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Rajan. A very good evening to all of you. Let me take this opportunity to welcome our Honorable Minister of Communications and IT, Shri Ravi Shankar Prasad ji. Thank you very much, sir, for taking your time. I'm aware that you were in Parliament and you finished with the Parliament session and came straight here, so grateful to you. I'm also grateful to Chairman TRAI, Mr. Sharma, who just left before the Minister, for his very collaborative message to the industry that together we will build the dream of Digital India and, importantly, broadband for all. My industry friends here who are assembled today, my friends from Ericsson, a company which I have known from the first day when I entered this business, and His Excellency, the Ambassador of Sweden to India. We are very greatly warmed by and touched by your words this evening of again showing the collaboration that India and Sweden can do in this particular area. And finally, friends from media. And let me start by saying that as I was walking up the stairs, 2 or 3 of my old media friends said, "Where are you going to get your 60,000 crores from?" This is the announcement, sir, that we made yesterday in terms of investments. And I was taken back many, many years ago in 1993 it was, when I was in the Sweden's Ericsson's headquarters in Kista. And I was having a luncheon meeting with Kurt Hellstrom, the then president of Ericsson. And the order that I was placing with Ericsson at that time for the Delhi networks was $27 million, and not the $9 billion, which is still being questioned today. And he asked me, how are you going to pay? I said, Kurt, look, I can put up only 15% of the deposit, which is $4 million. I don't have any more money, and the money will be paid to you on happiness. And he said, describe happiness. This was over lunch. I said, happiness is when my customers are making calls on the road, inside the rooms, and are happily making their conversations. That will be the day of happiness, and I promise you, you will be paid. And I must say, Kurt Hellstrom took that challenge and decided to ship the equipment of $27 million to a fledgling startup operator called Airtel at that time in Delhi. And they say rest is history. But today, to my friends in Ericsson, I have to say the 60,000 crores will be paid on happiness when my minister is happy. When my regulator is happy. I cannot tell you, my friends at Ericsson, and Delhi network is an Ericsson network, so I can tell you. And Paolo, you know that we have been having these conversations, and you are working very hard, I know. But I was with the minister even last night. He remains unhappy. I think we together need to commit to all the users of our network, the government, the regulators, and all of us who are assembled here today, a commitment that we will make these networks work, despite some difficulties that we face. I think it's our job to overcome those difficulties. And Minister Sir, right in the beginning of my short speech, may I give you the confidence and commitment on behalf of the entire industry that we are on a daily basis, weekly basis, getting better. And I was very encouraged with your words a few days back that you're finding some improvements, but more needs to be done, and we will do so. On a serious note, I think we are here today for Broadband for All. This is a call also that I made in Antalya just late last month to the G20 leaders, where Internet for all, connectivity for all was one of the key pillars that was given to the G20 leaders, and there was a great deal of resonance around this particular theme. Our Prime Minister's vision of Digital India, using digital medium as a way of achieving many of his pillars, is in the center stage of all that he plans to do for our country. To my mind, he accords the highest priority amongst his pillars to Digital India because he recognizes that building hard infrastructure, building health programs, building education for all are all going to take time. And something that can crash that time is a digital medium by way of which public services, government services, M-health, M-education, M-commerce, and all of the variety of things that the society needs can be efficiently and effectively delivered through digital medium. That's why you see the big programs that the regulator just spoke about, the BharatNet, very large amounts of money are being spent on building fiber to the panchayat. On top of that, we will be putting our layers of wireless communications, and we are therefore one of the important parts of his vision to provide all that is required in the country through the digital medium. I personally feel there are some fundamental requirements to achieve this, and I will touch upon that in a moment. But what is the outcome that we seek from a digital India? Financial inclusion, I think the regulator also spoke about it through the payment banks that have been given to mobile companies. We should now provide frugal banking in this country. Into the deep rural area, we should be able to do what we have been able to do with our mobile services. Providing that 10 rupees top-up voucher at fraction of the cost, providing payment services, transfer of money, ensuring that they can pick up banking products from our payment banks at fraction of a cost that the banks are delivering to them today. I think that will be a challenge that we must take upon ourselves, and I have no doubt that this industry is going to surprise everyone on the positive side. Make in India is another important part of the Prime Minister's strategy, and I think if we have to bring in affordable devices, which is again a very, very important part of the digital program, we need to manufacture some of these devices here. Smartphones are rising in their supplies from outside. The load on India to import these devices is going to increase. 25 million a quarter, as we heard. This will probably end up going to 100 million a quarter. I think time has come to seek the manufacturing community, the vendor community, to come and manufacture more and more here. I think that will be an important part of the entire program. Something that is incumbent upon us is very large-scale investments into the networks. And I'm happy that we announced a major program of 60,000 crores of investment yesterday, and that was in hardcore capital infrastructure, radio base stations, switches, submarine cables, fiber optic cables, and also changing some of the older networks. I'm sure the rest of the industry will be also putting their own investments, taking the investment levels that this country has not seen for a long period of time. Minister Sir, you'll be pleased to note that this year is the largest capex year for Airtel, where we will be spending about 16,000 crores on just capital expenditure on networks, excluding the spectrum. We will need your support. This particular vision cannot be achieved even by an efficient private sector. While we have been able to take phones to rural hinterland, into forest, into deep into Himalayas, but I think the next journey, which is the Broadband For All, will require more enhanced cooperation from the government. You must be commended, and I can tell you I've been a long traveler on this road for over 23, 24 years now. In fact, my first step into telecommunication was in 1983, so that in some sense makes me one of the first private sector citizens in the country to be associated with telecom. I can tell you, sir, I have tried hard, but not succeeded for all these years on some of the important issues facing this industry. And you have, in a short period of time, taken care of some of these vital issues that were facing the industry. Spectrum trading is not new to us. This has been talked for the last 10 years. In the last 5 years, it's been a policy in the making. Within few months of your promised commitment, we have spectrum trading, we have spectrum sharing. When this industry came under tremendous flack on call drops, you came forward and made a very important statement. You cannot have no towers and good mobile services. You debunked the issue around radiation hazard by saying there is no issue on radiation. And I think those messages coming from an authoritative voice like yours help our cause with the resident welfare associations and general society at large. You wrote letters to the government and state governments to ensure that we have right-of-way availability, government buildings are made available for putting up towers, and I think these are important ingredients of a collaboration that we seek from your side, sir. So once again, let me say, I deeply compliment you and your boldness in supporting the industry issues. Few things will require your attention, sir, perhaps urgent attention. The regulator, Mr. Sharma, spoke about the issue of spectrum. I think the way data is surging, we will need more spectrum. And I'm glad that on your request, the TRAI is engaged in a consultation paper in terms of putting out recommendations to you so that an early next round of auction can take place. Within that, we would hope that there will be enough spectrum put out on the table so that the industry can add to the existing spectrum pools that they have to ensure that we don't see some very heightened activity in the trading area. Trading is, in my mind, meant to allow some of the operators who don't have use of this spectrum to give it to those who need it. But surely your design never envisaged very large premiums. I have been a votary of free trading of spectrum. In fact, when the government decided to levy a 13% charge on spectrum trading, my view was, sir, that this spectrum has been taken in auction and monies have been paid, and therefore this should be allowed to be transferred with only an administrative charge of 1% that you are charging. However, the last deal which has been announced clearly makes my case extremely weak. In fact, the government in that sense may rightly say today, if spectrum is sold for 100 on day 1 and it's going to be sold for 150 on day 5 or 6, then should the government not pick up some part of that revenue? I think, therefore, the middle ground here should be the spectrum price that was discovered in the auction should be the base on which nothing should be charged, to my mind. But any earned increase on top of that, any windfall gains, a substantial portion must be shared with the government. This could be a better compromise, and I would really appeal to you from this forum today that you may want to look at a situation where spectrum profiting is discouraged by government charging a levy, but spectrum trading should be encouraged so that those who need spectrum desperately can access spectrum without paying a kind of a levy or a 13-14%. This also puts pressure on the reserve price, and I must mention that there have been 5 auctions, sir. Most of them have been prior to your period. One successful has been during your term. The first auction, I think none of us knew how to go about it. Neither the regulator, nor the department, nor the operators. Some sensible estimates had to be made. And if I may remind the audience here, the 3G spectrum 5 megahertz block was fixed at 3,500 approximately. And that block of spectrum, sir, went for 16,500. So it went up by nearly 4.5, 5 times. The BWO spectrum, again, was more than twice the reserve price. The second time around, I think because of the scare of the Supreme Court cancellation of licenses, etc., the reserve price was taken up very high by the regulator. The result was no show in the first round of spectrum auction, which was the second auction, and the third auction had a very, very small participation, in which some of those who picked up are now trading in those spectrum. The last one, the round which went off very successfully, last 2 rounds, have seen certain bands very heavy activity and some bands moderate to low activity. Therefore, at best, all the exercise that is done around the discovery of a reserve price is an estimate, at best an estimate. And therefore, we need to probably accelerate this program, get a good estimate, and put out the spectrum into auction. The other part I would say is on the spectrum caps. Here again, I think we have to commend you and Department of Telecom and TRAI that you are reviewing the process of looking at spectrum caps. My own view is 50% in-band spectrum cap, I think is a good check to have, because nobody wants to have the spectrum, entire spectrum in one operator's hands. That takes away robust competition, that takes away development of ecosystem. But the overall cap of 25% certainly needs a relaxation, because there are operators with 35, 40% market share and operating at a lower level. So my other request to you would be, sir, to liberally look at the spectrum cap issues, again, which will allow broadband networks to be built of a higher quality. The regulator raised the issue of wireline, the fixed line, and it was not on my agenda to speak, but picking up from what he said, I would say this is again an area which should require a lot of push from your side, sir. 95% of India's wireline is provided by BSNL and MTNL, and only about 5% by private sector, because private sector has been mainly engaged within the wireless space. There is a 6% license fee which is levied on fixed line as well, of which 5% is given as USO by fixed line, and 95% of this comes from BSNL and MTNL. Fixed line in itself needs USO support. Fixed line is an area which is requiring some attention, sir, and I would say if we need to push fixed line, we need to incentivize it. I think you came out through the regulator's voice by taking away the termination charge on fixed line. You made it zero. I think that was a great move, but somehow it has had unintended consequences. Just last week, a new service has been launched called Ringo. All you have to do is send a missed call to their number. Then they pick up the fixed line. They connect two mobile connections that you need, the one you need and where you have dialed from. They connect these two mobile phones, and no termination charge is paid on either side. So they are gaming this system. I'm sure regulator is already looking at it, but it has had unintended consequences that it is meant for BSNL, MTNL, and fixed line operators, but there are services coming around this to arbitrage on the termination charges. So my request would be some incentives towards people to roll out fixed networks would be order of the day. In China, where you have over a million mobile phones, you have about 400 million fixed line phones. In India, as we are reaching to 1 billion mobile phones, I think the fixed line is shrinking from the 37, 38 million in 90s to around 24, 25 million today. So that will be another area for your attention, sir. Overall, I feel we are on a very strong wicket, with a very forward-looking policies coming from the Department of Telecom under your leadership, a very robust forward-looking regulator, a very determined ecosystem providers like Ericsson and others who are increasing more and more capacity in the same spectrum. We just saw some of the 5G demonstration where you could actually look at 5,000 Mbps. And that, to my mind, is a mind-boggling number that you can crunch in the same spectrum and can take a lot of issues that are bothering the industry today. And then, of course, last but not the least, in the same food chain, the mobile operators and the other telecom service providers who are determined shoulder to shoulder to take the Digital India agenda forward. So with these words, let me say, sir, we are grateful for your indulgence. We are thankful that you are taking a bold and courageous role in moving this industry forward. And on our behalf, on the industry's behalf, as perhaps the longest serving member of the Indian private sector telecom, I would like to tell you that our commitment remains firm, and we will ensure that we come up to your expectations. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Sunil, for that ringing endorsement, certainly from the industry side, as to the full commitment of the industry to make the requisite investments and the partnerships with the government, and to take forward the Honorable Prime Minister's vision and your efforts as well to enhance that vision and complete it. Sir, I just would like to share some statistics under your tutelage and under the period in time that you were Minister, sir. Sunil has mentioned some, but let me just give you the rest of what has happened in the brief time span that you had responsibility for this portfolio, sir. Total rollout of sites from Jan to July of 2015, just this particular year, sir, 70,751 BTS, sir. The initial villages covered under your tutelage, under NoFan, sir, from March to March 15, 20,000. And this was a moribund system before you came on board, sir. The number of kilometers of OFC that has been rolled out, 14.5 lakh kilometers that have been implemented. Total FDI, sir, that came in just between May 14th, June 15th, INR 10,925 crore rupees, and that's before some of these numbers have been announced. Spectrum auctions offered in March 15, Indian rupees again, 109,875 crores again. So that's again before the next round. And one of the singular things that happened was the defense spectrum, the 2100, which for the long time was held in abeyance. You stepped up and got that out and helped set that into place. Total investments during fiscal year 15, INR 50,000 crore rupees, again, just in the last several months, the bulk of that. Total net additions in subscribers, sir, 82 million, as I was just telling Honorable the Swedish ambassador. So that's about 10 times the population of Sweden in just the 9 to 10 months that we've had this. The broadband wireless subscribers, again in the short time period, 51 million. And again, the increase in data usage, 77 megabits. That we have experienced. 98 smart cities in the process of being rolled out, announced, and receiving attention. All right, spectrum sharing and trading, as was mentioned by Sunil, already allowed, rolling out, and already some big deals have been announced. Idea certainly made headlines, and so that's seeing the fruits. Government lands and buildings allowed. Sir, you were one of the first ministers that actually went out to the Urban Development Ministry and the Defense Ministry, sir, and said, these guys need help. And this is what I shared previously, that of help that we've received from the present government has just been stupendous and immense. The meeting with the personnel with the Ministry of Urban Development and Defense to facilitate this, and already the Post and Telegraphs have now come forward and asked us what are the lot sizes and the land and buildings that could be there in order to install our coverage sites, again, as a result of you pushing that, sir. So again, EMF, first minister that publicly went out on record, sir, made a recording in terms of assuring the citizens that the safety norms adopted by India are one of the stringent and most secure. Sir, again, thank you very much. So with that, sir, a great list, and I won't take any more time to go on, but if I could invite you now, sir, to address this gathering and give us your thoughts on Broadband for All and what you see coming up, sir. Thank you very much.
Excellency, the Ambassador of Sweden, Sunil Mittal, distinguished gentlemen on the podium, ladies and gentlemen. First, my sincere sorry that I came late, but it was beyond my control. For the last 2-3 days, we were having an important debate in the Parliament on the 125th anniversary of Baba Saheb Ambedkar, the founder of our Constitution. I had also to speak before the Prime Minister. The Prime Minister had to conclude in my house, and therefore I had given them time, but I'm happy you waited. I'm grateful. I was a minister in the Bajpayee government, and I'm minister again in the Narendra Modi government. I had the privilege to handle departments like coal and mines, and law and justice, information broadcasting in the Bajpayee government, and telecommunication and IT, post and electronic manufacturing in the present government. Whenever I become a minister, I set certain goals for me. They becomes an idea of priority. And the rest of the department works in the routine conventional fashion. But I try to drive the entire departments along the goals I have set for myself. When I became the minister, I said I will try to turn around BSNL. As many of you may know, when we left office in the Bajpayee government, BSNL was having a profit of 10,000 crores. When we returned, after 10 years to power, BSNL was suffering a loss of 8,000 crores. Today, I'm happy to say, after 13 months, the BSNL has earned operating profit, has increased its revenue base, also its customer, giving new lines, landline free from 9 o'clock in the night till the morning. Roaming has become free, coming up with other incentivized programs. And I'm sure in the coming 2 years, they will turn around completely. The beginning has been met. The same is the case with MTNL. I'm sharing with you, when I was the Coal Mines Minister of India in Bajpayee government, the Coal India has suffered a loss of 1,400 crores. And within a short span of 1.5 years, I could turn around Coal India into a profit-making company of 1,000 crore plus. That's how I work. Here, because I'm talking to you for the first time, it is very important you also know me, what kind of minister I am. Many of my friends on the podium may be knowing me, but you all need to know how I work. That will be convenient for working in future. Here in my department, I fixed 2 goals for me in the telecom ministry. growth of telecom sector and consumer satisfaction. And I think I was the first minister to publicly declare, I'm a minister for growth of telecom sector. I'm also a minister for the consumers of the telecom. A view I hold even today. I realize that a lot of policy initiatives are pending. Some of that Sunil talked about. Defense band identification was pending for 7 to 8 years. We resolved that. Today the defense bands have been identified, affirmed by the cabinet. Spectrum trading, spectrum sharing was pending for God knows about 8 to 9 years. That is in place, affirmed by the cabinet. Spectrum harmonization, spectrum liberalization, all have been done. Then I realized that I need to speak very publicly against this lingering doubt of radiation effect. And I started speaking very publicly about it. When I said, campaign against towers and complain against call drop cannot go hand in hand. And we talked about with evidence, and today I'm also reiterating very clearly and categorically that I've got a very conclusive report of the World Health Organization of 30,000 samples, and our radiation norms are 10 times tougher than the international standards. And if anyone is willing to show me tangible medical evidence, I'm willing to look into it. But what I'm not able to appreciate, why it is not an issue in USA, why it is not an issue in Europe, why it is not an issue in London, England, why it is not an issue in the adjoining parts of India, Southeast Asia, why it is an issue in India. I'm sorry I have not been able to find any reply to it. And thereafter I started very publicly speaking about it. Well, ladies and gentlemen, whatever policy decision was required to be taken, pending for the last so many years, have been taken. Yes, on the spectrum cap, the assigned spectrum liberalization has also been finalized. After the commission has taken a call, let it come to me. I will take a call. On the spectrum cap issue, yes, I have seen your points. TRAI has taken a call. Commission has chosen to take a decision. Let me see how it can go about it. I'm alive to that problem. I cannot promise it will be done very quickly. But the process is on. The reason as to why I have recounted at the very outset all the initiative is, I have done my duty. The operators must do their duty. And that I'm saying very firmly and with full sense of responsibility. While Sunil, I acknowledge your role as the third largest operator of the world. Your company has done a great job. All the other private operators deserve my compliment and good wishes for the great work they have done. I'll speak about it later. But you need to be alive to consumer satisfaction as well. And I regret to say, very frankly, it took a lot of nudging on my side to all of you getting publicly acknowledged that there is a need for improvement. Initial alibi was spectrum is less. There's a need to improve the network. And I compliment you that you are coming with investment proposals. I'm sorry, I don't want to be known as call drop minister. Sorry. I'm being very clear about it. And I will drive it very, very categorically because the country is concerned about it. We are concerned about it. And as a government accountable to the people's convenience, the operators will have to rise to the occasion to reinforce their network, to plug the gaps, to do the coordination. And where the infrastructure is lacking, to invest in the infrastructure. Be very clear about it. I am willing to walk 10 times with you. I have already walked. You need to walk 20 times with me. And your walking must be matched when I think consumers tell me that we are happy about it. And you can do it. When I heard about from Termcell that things are improving, I publicly talked in your favor. But can we say that things are improved absolutely? I cannot say that. I told my MTNL CMD, go out in the car, in your smartphone, move in Delhi and see where there is a call drop. I don't want to go for parallel report. You go yourself. I go in the field. If I see a problem, I convey to Sunil, your CEO, to my private secretary, ask him that this is the gap area. I want this kind of movement to start. Why in Delhi only? What about the other places? Therefore, yes, on the BSNL, MTNL, I'm being very tough. And I'm very happy in a lot of the hinterland improvement is there. People are telling me. I was campaigning in Bihar and at 3,000 feet height, 3 ministers were talking. Unfortunately, all of them were having BSNL. They were talking for 5 minutes. And I said in my Hindi, आपका फोन काम कर रहा है 3000 फीट की ऊंचाई पर? ये BSNL है. I am very happy. I landed at Patna airport. I complimented. You did a good job. And Sunil, mark my word, the day I find the same experience of Airtel, I will ring you up to compliment a good job done. That's the kind of minister I am. But I am very firm, politely. Don't misunderstand me. This is something which I shall pursue. This is something which my government is keen. This is something which you have to deliver. I know your capability. You can do it. Just now, read as to how many towers have been created. I'm very happy to hear that. But why does it need the nudging of a minister to do so? Can I ask that question? We are so proud. You all have done wonders in this country by bringing telephony to the nook and corner of the country. When someone tells me we have got nearly 980 million mobile phones in India, it makes me happy. With landline, it has crossed 1 billion plus. It is happy. When the internet providers tell me that now, by December end, we are going to have nearly almost 400 million internet connections in India, it makes me happier, mobile and landline both. How India is changing, where I wish to come here to compliment all of you have done. I was campaigning in my own state of Bihar, and this I started from a place like Barachatti. It is a reserve constituency of the Mahadalit, the poorest among the depressed classes. It was a meeting about 80 kilometers away from Gaya in Mohanpur village. About 5,000 people were there. Ramvilas Paswan was there and I was there. Now, whenever I used to stand up, the smartphone starts, young people catching me. There I asked, how many of you are on Facebook? About 500 hands went up. Thereafter, I started replicating it everywhere. Small Mufassil towns, not big towns. And mind you, everywhere a positive. So many are on Facebook, we follow you. And the most interesting was Kusheswarathan. That particular constituency is in the womb of Koshi River, with no communication at all. When I asked that question to a small group of 400 party workers and others, they said, we follow you also on Twitter. It was so amazing that in the most forlorn, ignored area, where even basic convenience and communication is not there, people are alive to Twitter. That's a great job you have done. Keep it up. Keep your reputation intact. Keep the outstanding consequence of your hard work being recognized with convenience. And when this question is asked to me, why the problem has become so acute in the last 2 years, I don't know what to say. But a problem is there. Maybe have you focused more on data at the cost of voice? Is it a fact? Data is good, I'm happy. But don't ignore the voice. That's my suggestion to you. Therefore, Sunil, why I'll compliment you for investing 60,000 crores. They must be used very, very quickly, expeditious manner. And mind you, I will hold you to a larger commitment when you said on the 1st of July in the presence of Prime Minister that you are going to invest 80,000 crores. I hope you remember that. Therefore, I will also hold you for that. And I will also hold Mukesh Ambani, who has promised about 2 lakh crore plus. I will also hold him, be very clear about it. What is my commitment? Anyone who asked for 4G, I said, go ahead. Sunil was the first to apply. I immediately granted that. Eligibility is there. Thereafter, Mr. Mukesh Ambani's company came. I also go ahead. Thereafter, if someone else asks, I'm most open to. Why not? Let 4, 5, 6 people come with 4G. If anyone has the infrastructure to give 5G, go ahead. The decision making in Sanchar Bhavan has become completely transparent. And my mantra is very clear. Anything which is doable shall be done, regardless of whatever you do. Anything which is not doable shall not be done, regardless of whatever you do. And I'm following that. I'm very clear about it. That's my government. Therefore, since I'm coming a body like this for the first time, others have also come. So let me clearly say what I am. And I've been, if there is something required to be revised, I shall go with a very open mind. I'm very clear about it. But for me, consumer satisfaction will remain very important. I will appreciate Sunil, the COI and others, that you please talk publicly about what you have done. Take the consumers into confidence. You have got a network all over the country. Why can't you engage? There need to be greater engagement. They are your catchment areas. Let that impression not linger before the people of India, that if there is a big consumer base, companies come in large number, but then they forget them as far as maintenance is concerned. The people of India have become very empowered. The people of India seek good delivery, and the people of India appreciate also. And therefore, India is the home to Facebook, the biggest chunk after USA. India is home to smartphone, the biggest chunk after USA. India is home to all the new technology. I just told you what is happening in the field. And my state is not that big a state at all. How India is changing is truly amazing. The Raksha Bandhan day and my 2 sisters come to tie Rakhi to me. And my son clicked my photograph. I said, put it on Facebook. I said, my greetings to all my sisters of India on Raksha Bandhan day. Within 4 hours, 8 lakh people saw that post, and about 20,000 comments came on that. The different India emerging. Social media is becoming a big part for that. Therefore, when we talk of digital India, what is digital India? Because broadbanding linked to that. Sunil has already talked about the initiative we have taken, the BharatNet part, how we expedited. Even the COI Secretary General has talked about a lot of initiative and the results which have come about. I don't want to repeat that. But let me convey the larger concept. And what is the larger concept? Digital India is something which we owe to the people of India. Bridging the digital divide between digital haves and digital have-nots. And whenever I have been an activist in public life from my student days, seeing a lot of activity, I have been in charge of about 8 states of India in elections, campaigning all over the country. And I have a habit to observe. And I have observed the metamorphosis of India, which is happening in the last so many years. And the way the people of India have adapted to technology is truly mind-boggling. A lot of instances come to my mind, but one I would like to share here, which one of my lawyer's friend one day shared with me. His car got punctured in Delhi. He's a big lawyer with a big car. It got punctured in the middle of the road. He left it there, came to his chamber, went on Google as to how many puncture-walas are there in Delhi. Then 50 numbers came. How many of these are around his office? Then 4 numbers came. He rang one, said, "Ki my car is punctured here, would you mind taking care of?" He gave him the message, and also he said, "All right, I'm coming to your office." He came, collected his key, and after half an hour, on a WhatsApp, sent the photograph of the car and the tube. The tar and the tube. It has 3 nails. I'm going to set it right, and after half an hour, I'm going to come to leave your car, and this is my bill. And exactly after half an hour he came, deposited the car and the key and the bill and took the payment and went away. The lawyer friend of mine became so excited, he immediately rang me up. This is how Delhi is changing. I was amazed myself. No one taught them that this technology can reinforce your business. But he himself picked it up. And this is happening in large part of India. And my vision of digital India, ladies and gentlemen, is a carpenter wala, an electrician, a mason, a barber, all them collectively use smartphones technology for furthering their business, and we give them that platform. That's what I'm thinking about. And it is happening on the ground. E-commerce, e-education. I'm amazed to see the growth of e-commerce. I asked my postal department in the last 1 year to become active participant. And Sunil will be happy to know that postal department, that old conventional department, has done a business of only 800 crores in the last 4-5 months in e-commerce that they have done. We managed a good payment bank permission for them. I said, leverage your wide spread network of 125,000 rural post offices out of 150,000. And gentlemen, today I am very happy to share with you 25 international financial consortium, all the top men are keen to partner with postal department for their post payment bank, which is going to be launched after some preparation. I'm very happy about it, how India is changing. We have got common service centers. Today, 60% of railway ticketing is e-ticketing. Insurance, other things, they are being run. Their number is 1,40,000. I have decided we'll make it 2 lakhs. And I've also decided that all the postal department, rural post offices will also be common service centers, giving literacy, training, banking, insurance, e-commerce, e-health, and also ticketing. And how India is changing, ladies and gentlemen, it is very important for telephone company to know that I asked my department must have a training for Mahadalit women, the lowliest of the low. It was done in Bodh Gaya in Bihar. 600 Mahadalit women had come in that function, 300 first, 300 second. And I asked 5 of them to come on the stage and speak. And I was amazed to see what a great self-confidence has dawned upon them by the mere training on the mouse. That's a new India emerging. And in this new India emergence, telecom companies have to play a very big role. We will do our part, policy part, the optical fiber network known as BharatNet. How India is changing, do you know, ladies and gentlemen? We decided we must need to involve the state governments. I called a meeting, I talked to the chief ministers. And today, 18 state governments have become ready to partner in the BharatNet success implementation in their own states. They are understanding the power of technology. Therefore, I'm very happy things are changing. I must compliment Ericsson also. You've done a great job in the technological architecture of India in the field of telecommunication. I commend you, I compliment you. Make in India is an important part of our program. And when I became minister, electronic manufacturing I picked up. We need to push in terms of electronic cluster and others. Today I'm very happy to announce that when I become minister, investment proposals worth 11,000 crores had come. After 1 year, 3 months, today we have investment commitments worth 1,13,000 crores, which has come in the last 13 months. And Ericsson, I'm very happy to announce, is also an important player of that process. We appreciate that. Make in India for India and also for export outside. We need to have good human resource in electronics. We have started PhD programs in 7 NITs of India, and other programs are also going so that India becomes a hub of electronic manufacturing. And when I see all the big companies, Foxconn to others, trying to come in India, I feel very happy, which I have been pursuing very vigorously. Therefore, the entire ecosystem is changing. Yes, we need to give more spectrum. That is a process under consideration by the TRAI presently, which Sunil talked about. let the TRAI recommendation come first. We have to look how far we can go about it. I'm quite open about it, but I cannot make any commitment now. But what is important is spectrum which you have got already in the last spectrum auction needs to be installed very quickly, expeditiously. If you have any problem, tell me, I will direct my department to expedite it also. Yes, we have to work together, I'm very clear about it. We have to work together. And I'm willing to walk, as I said, 10 steps with you, if need be 20 steps, but you will have to walk 20 steps with me when I'm taking the 10 steps, or 40 steps when I'm taking the 20 steps. If that is done, then you will see a different ecosystem in India. I'm indeed very happy that Broadband for All is a larger commitment needed. And when this whole ecosystem comes about, you know how India is changing? I asked one of the key players of e-commerce, what is your catchment area? And they told me 60 to 65% are small Mufassal towns of India. That is the new aspirational class of India. I said, from where you get the highest? He said, Aizawl in Mizoram, the capital, from where they are getting the highest. Now kindly see, because in far northeast, they are not exposed to India, the hinterland. Therefore, they are satisfying their aspiration through the instrument of smartphone, through e-commerce. That's a new India emerging. And therefore, in northeast also we have got a special program of mobile telephony, about 5,000 crore plus the cabinet has approved. For Maoist area also nearly 3,000 crores, the program is under implementation. And yes, also the uncovered area we have to do quickly. Therefore, this expansion of telephony and internet and broadband, all simultaneously, has enough potential to really transform India. And that's the larger commitment. We have to work together. I'm very happy that I came here and shared my view. I'm sure we'll work together to implement that grand vision. Thanks a lot. Namaskar.
So, Honorable Minister, thank you very much, sir, for that very challenging speech and call to arms, if you will, for the industry. Your promise that you'll walk with us at 10 steps. If we walk with you for 20, you'll walk with us 20. If we walk with you 40, so our commitment is that, and we will take that to heart. We appreciate the frank talk, the openness, the honesty with which you've laid out your agenda and your program. And again, the commitment of the industry, sir, is to be able to meet your expectations in terms of the happiness of the customer, as well as the call for the industry to step up and to make the necessary investments and improvements. We understand the challenges that we face, but again, please understand from the industry, sir, that we will do everything within our power to address your concerns and the concerns of our customers. With that, sir, may I express my heartfelt gratitude, my thankfulness for you taking out your time. I know that's a busy time. And again, on behalf of Ericsson, on behalf of COI, on behalf of the industry, the ladies and gentlemen here, and the media, sir, may I again say thank you so very much for being in our midst and in our presence. And we wish you a very happy day and a good night too, sir. Thank you for being with us.